this is the second year that the Waquoit Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve has hosted this conference, and by the over 270 participants over the next 2 days, it's obvious that the staff that's been working so hard to put this together has identified a real need to get together and discuss the issues that are brought before us in this agenda today. As you all know, it takes a lot of work to put on a conference like this, both from the organizations involved and the staff who support them. And I know Tana Marie, who's going to follow me with comments, will recognize each of our individual sponsors. But I want to take this moment to, again, recognize our host, the Cape Cod Community College, to welcome those of you who are participating in the second annual Cape Environmental Summit, which is being held at the conference as well this year, and to recognize some of our own staff who have been working so hard. So Tana Marie, who's sitting behind me here, is our Coastal Training Program Coordinator and is the driving force behind this. She's joined by Lori Tompkins and Sherry Proft, who I think are still at the desks out front, Allie Clift as well, and I believe that we have a couple of education folks here, Joan Muller and Nancy Church, here today as well, and Kate Harvey, who also works in the Coastal Training Program. So I'd just like to recognize those staff members who have done a lot of work to put this together. So just a little bit about the reserve itself. The Waquoit Bay Reserve is part of a national system of 28 coastal reserves that are partnerships between NOAA and a state partner. In Massachusetts, our state partner is the Department of Conservation and Recreation. And each of those reserves serves their local communities in unique ways. At the Waquoit Bay Reserve, which we're located in the towns of Falmouth and Mashpee, we really are an exciting combination of living laboratory with some of the top-end science on coastal issues in the world going on the Cape, an outdoor classroom with lots of children and adults coming to programs and running around the reserve every day. We're a demonstration area where all of you are welcome to come and see some of the research going on, some of the monitoring equipment out in the field. You know, we do lots and lots of field tours. And we're also a state park, so people come to the beach there. You can actually camp at the reserve on Washburn Island. So we welcome people from all walks of life who want to learn about, to study, to explore, or just enjoy the coastal environment that brings us all here today. So if you haven't been to the reserve, I welcome you to come sometime and visit us in one of those capacities. Tana Marie had asked me to say a few words about the agenda today and about the theme of the day. And last night, after a relatively long day on the water and maybe a little bit dehydrated, I kept coming back to the Cape Coastal Conference at the Cape Cod Community College, which in my mind was the 3 C's at the 4 C's. And you know, the scientist in me had to add those together and come up with the 7 C's. And then my mind got stuck on that issue and I couldn't get past it. So then I thought, you know what, I'll just run with this. So, you know, the 7 C's metaphor is really appropriate here. When we look at what you're trying to cover here, the water quality issues that we all deal with every day, the ever-increasing felt effects of climate change and trying to build resilient coastal communities, we realize that the depth and the breadth of these subjects can feel overwhelming, like the seas at some point in time. And like the seas themselves, these subjects bring together art and science, landed captains and common sailors, and even if you think about it, some beauty and some danger in these subjects. And if it's a storm at sea or grappling with issues, difficult issues at times like water quality and the effects of climate change, it's at these times that the best of us step forward, that the best ideas can bubble up and become clear. And that we either as a crew, if you're out at sea, or together here, we can gather together as a community to solve them. So let's be encouraged, actually, and examine these challenges with open minds. Let's realize that no matter our background, we all have something to offer to these issues. And the life that we have all chosen here out on this Cape, and the Cape itself, are too wonderful and too beautiful to do anything less than to give these issues our collective and individual best efforts. So, with that, I encourage you all to make the most of this conference as a time to learn, as a time to network, as a time to recharge our own batteries. And I want you all to think about that it's that realization that we're all hauling on individual parts of the same lines that will not only lead us to success, but guarantee our success in our endeavors moving forward. So with that, I would like to welcome you all again to the conference, and I think Tana Marie has some words for you.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to add my welcome to Jim's and just thank you all for taking the time to come here. We're in a bigger space this year compared to last, but we have more people than we did last year, and so this is great. I want to thank you for taking the time and to recognize that these are important issues, that you value investing and learning about them, and that you're going to contribute to all that takes place over the next 2 days. I just want to take some time. Jim mentioned that this is a collaborative effort among a wide group of partners who have contributed to planning this event. And before we get into the details of the day, I do just want to just recognize each organization, each sponsor, each planning team member. So I'm just going to run through those folks right now just to make sure that you understand who they are. First, I want to just thank our parent state agency, the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation. I also want to thank our sponsor, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the Cape Cod Community College, who's hosting us, the Woods Hole Sea Grant Program, Provincetown Center for Coastal Studies, the Cape Cod Commission, Three Bays Preservation, the Waquoit Bay Reserve Foundation, that's the Friends group of the Waquoit Bay Reserve, the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, and the Massachusetts Bays Program, as well as the Association of Planning and the Massachusetts chapter of that organization. And last but not least, the Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management Office. And we also have several exhibitors who have contributed to today, and you can view the exhibits that they have later on, both during the breaks at lunchtime and at the networking time later on today. And for our planning team members, I'm just going to ask them to stand. I know they won't want to do this, but I'll run through their names quickly because I think it's important to recognize the time that they've put in over the last few months in terms of contributing ideas, helping to contact speakers, helping with planning the agenda, and all these folks deserve accolades. So Pat Hughes, Brian Dudley, Judith McDowell, Joanne Muramoto, Erin Perry, Lindsay Council, Steve McKenna, Judith Underwood, Brian Curry, Lori Tompkins, and Kate Harvey. So thanks to you all again. And Jim nicely laid out what we're about today, and I just want to frame up just with 5 sentences what the main objectives are for the Cape Coastal Conference. As he mentioned, we launched this event last year, coming out from a needs assessment that we did of local officials and decision makers on the Cape, and figured out that having an annual event like this would contribute to the needs of this particular audience group. And so the objectives, and I'm going to take the time to read them because we won't necessarily be coming back to them again, but I think it's important to just rest our minds and take stock of what it is that we are gathering to achieve. And the first one is just that we're interested in providing science-based information to local decision makers that they can ultimately use in their work. We're not just about presenting a bunch of information just for the sake of talking about issues, but really looking at what is relevant science-based information that we can deliver to individuals who are charged with addressing topics like water quality and coastal resilience on a daily basis. And if you think about it, the way our coastal resources are managed really comes down to decisions being taken at various levels of government, in various organizations. It comes down to people working and making decisions every day. And the information that they use as they create and make choices is important. And so what we're about is delivering high quality information that can inform those choices and inform management actions. And then secondly, we want to create a forum for dialogue and discussion, understanding that people are very busy. You come from all different areas in your work and in your volunteer lives. And so it's important to just have a forum where we can come together and talk about these issues and have a time to recharge and learn from each other. So those are two broad objectives for the Coastal Conference in general. And for this year, we're particularly about increasing knowledge and understanding of science, management actions, and planning processes related to addressing water quality and how we prepare the Cape to deal with coastal threats from storms, sea level rise, and climate change. And at last year's event, we asked people to complete an evaluation and tell us the topics that were a priority for them, and these were the overwhelming ones that rose to the top, and that's why we continued with this theme. And so I think that we're connecting to something that you all have identified as priorities, and we have framed them up for this two-day agenda. And then lastly, we know that inspiration is something that is important to keep us on track as we work on these really complex issues that can be very challenging, and sometimes you feel like these are issues that just take over people's lives for years. Sometimes I think about the people who work on town boards and who have dedicated 5, 10, 15, 20 years working on some of these issues over time, and you realize that it's a long haul, it takes a lot of effort, and so having a chance like this to learn from each other and to be inspired to continue in the work is really, really important. And lastly, overall, as people go forth from today, we hope that in the work you do and in the connections you make at today and beyond, that together we'll continue to work towards having wise stewardship of the coastal resources that are so important and at the heart of the Cape's economy, sustainability, and just livelihoods. And then with that, we are going to transition. It's going to be my great pleasure and honor to introduce our first keynote presenter for today. I'm going to just ask Kate to come up and switch over to Dorothy Savarese from the Cape Cod 5 Cents Bank is going to be our presenter. As Kate is switching over the PowerPoint, I am going to just take the time to tell you a little bit about Dorothy and to welcome her. So Dorothy is the chairman and president and chief executive officer of the Cape Cod 5 Cents Savings Bank. She joined Cape Cod 5 in 1993 as a commercial lending officer, and she then became senior vice president, director of product planning before she was named chief operating officer in 2004, and served in that capacity until becoming president and chief executive officer in 2005. Prior to joining the Cape Cod 5, Dorothy served as an officer for a regional Midwestern bank. And before that, she worked for a national economic development consulting organization. She's received an MBA from Suffolk University's Sawyer Business School. And Dorothy is chairman of the board of trustees of the Cape Cod 5 and chairman of the Cape Cod 5 Cents Savings Bank Charitable Foundation Trust with $13 million in assets. She's also past chairman and a member of the board of the Massachusetts Bankers Association and a member of the board of directors of both the American Bankers Association and the American Bankers Mutual Insurance Limited. She serves on the FDIC Advisory Committee on Community Banking. And she's also a board member and past chairman of the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and she serves as secretary on the board of trustees of the Cape Cod Community College. And in 2012 and 2013, Dorothy was named one of the 25 most powerful women in banking by American Bankers magazine. So she has quite a lot of accolades, and we're thrilled that she's agreed to join us today. We thought it would be important to kind of hear the message of why getting to clean water is an imperative for the Cape. And that having somebody who's not necessarily working in the environmental community, every day we hear that message, but somebody who has a different kind of spin on this, who can think about this from a different angle to frame up today's discussion. So we're very pleased, and I'd just like to welcome Dorothy now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tana Marie, and thank you, Jim, for queuing this up so beautifully as well, and for Waquoit Bay for being the sponsor. But what I was just delighted about was that Tana Marie had to take the time to read the names of all of the co-planners and co-sponsors and exhibitors, because it would have used up all of my time if I were to have done that. So thank you for getting that important work done of recognizing all of that. And again, one more round of applause to all of the people who put this on today. Thank you. You know, I know it was hard to get up early and get here this morning. A rainy day on Cape Cod is one where you'd sort of like to sleep in. But I really commend you for making the effort to get here. And when I looked at the attendance list, it included so many of the critical stakeholders that are needed to get to clean water on Cape Cod. And so I think you did a good job of answering the question, if all the critical stakeholders are in the audience, why am I standing up here? And so, you know, when Tana Marie asked us to have me do the keynote for a keynote for today, what I thought would be an important thing to do is just tell you why it's important, right? And give you that perspective, and also why it's so urgent. Because as the CEO of Cape Cod 5, which is, as you know, the largest local bank on Cape Cod and the islands, I can tell you what clean water not just means to our business, but actually what it also means to the 90,000 customers we have on the Cape and Islands. For example, Cape Cod 5 currently services $3.4 billion of loans, on the, mostly on the Cape and Islands. We have mortgages for first-time homebuyers who are finally starting their family and getting a chance to live their dream. We have mortgages on the homes of retirees who are finally getting that dream retirement home. We also have homes on our policemen and firemen and environmentalists and town officials. We have loans to our hotels and motels and restaurants and so many of the businesses that depend on the tourism industry. And all of them are depending on you and your work. Each year, the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, and I should disclaim I'm not speaking on their behalf today because I don't want Wendy, you know, to get mad at me because, or Gary to say I've said anything wrong. But one of the things that we did start was having a survey of business people every year. And for the last 4 years, 2 issues topped the list: protection of the natural environment and wastewater infrastructure. So I don't know if any of you are surprised to know that that is what the business survey surfaced. Is anybody here surprised by that? Oh, thank you. Okay, so yes, you are surprised. So the message is getting there, but I want to come back and talk a little bit more about that. Also, when we did our strategic plan, Cape Cod Chamber, 90 years old, we decided we needed to plan for the next 90 years. The top answer to the question that says, identify the most important issue when it comes to promoting Cape Cod as a sustainable destination of choice, and the answer was clean water. So we have an economy that is based on the fact that we're a coastal community. People choose to come here to live, work, play, and create. Now, a lot of you recognize this book. In his 1928 book, The Outermost House, it's one of my favorites. Henry Beston, in explaining how a fortnight by the sea led to a year by the sea, said, "The world today is sick to its thin blood for lack of elemental things, for fire before the hands, for water welling from the earth, for air, for the dear earth itself underfoot. In my world of beach and dunes, these elemental presences lived and had their being, and under their arch there moved an incomparable pageant of nature and of the year. And it is this primal and elemental environment where water meets land to which millions are drawn. But the impact of man on the quality of water could destroy this beautiful region and the economy that is built on its siren song. Visitors expect to swim in clean ponds and bays, enjoy marshes filled with healthy eelgrass. Paul Niedzwiecki taught me all about healthy eelgrass, and the flora and fauna that occur in unpolluted waters. Fishermen require that there be fish in our rivers, and shell fishermen need clams and oysters from pollution-free estuaries, and we all require clean drinking water from our town wells. So I said I'm here to tell you how important your work is and the cost of it if you're not successful. According to the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, visitors to Barnstable County spent more than $1 billion in 2012. The spending supported more than 9,000 jobs, or more than $250 million in payroll. It generated about $125 million in taxes and fees. And you can imagine the impact on the residents and businesses of our region if we're not able to address the critical issues of wastewater and stormwater management. So, we talked about leadership earlier. Your leadership is important. Very, very important. I'm not exaggerating when I'm using these visual images for you. I heard Rebecca Costas, and since this is there's a lot of scientists here, and you guys are not going to think I'm a nerd for bringing this up. I'm so happy to be in this audience. She's a genetic biologist. Is anybody aware of her work? Yeah, fascinating woman. And she wrote a book called The Watchman's Rattle, Thinking Our Way Out of Extinction. Those who know me don't think it's odd, you will perhaps, that I gave this as holiday gifts. So in it, she said that after studying societies that failed, she came to the conclusion that the difference between an advanced culture that survives and one that doesn't may simply boil down to whether a society develops new ways to triumph over naturally occurring cognitive thresholds. And these cognitive thresholds are reached when the society faces increasing complexity. And if you think about what's ahead of you today and tomorrow, in terms of the challenges, you can understand that the daunting element of it is, in fact, the complexity. Now, in terms of societal failure, the two early signs are gridlock and the substitution of beliefs for knowledge and facts. She gives a number of examples of cultures who failed, including the Mayans. Although they had practiced water conservation for years, and is there anybody here familiar with the Mayans, by the way, and what I knew this would be a crowd where people actually would raise their hand on that question. I love you. I thought it was fascinating because actually I did not understand that they had, in fact, recognizing with the implications of declining rainfall that they needed to take action. So they did practice conservation. But what happened is the rainfall kept declining and their conservation methods were not sufficient. And so what happened was they fell into gridlock and then they substituted beliefs for knowledge and facts. And then they began attacking anything that they perceived as a threat to their culture. And we all know, sadly, about the ritualistic sacrifices. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting is that one small community called the Lamanai actually existed, it's outside of Belize, and it outlasted the other Mayan cities by as much as 300 years because they continued to pursue logical solutions to the drought. Archaeologists recently discovered an underground system that managed the water and protected it from evaporation, and then also served as a place to extend the life of their scarce food supplies. So they continued to pursue knowledge and beliefs and were determined to solve problems both scientifically and ritualistically. They incorporated both and didn't abandon one for the other. But unfortunately, as the water problems continued, they eventually chose ritual, gave up the pursuit of knowledge, and they also became extinct. Now, why? Well, from Rebecca Costa's perspective, it's because they too hit a cognitive threshold. As the complexity of their situation grew, they never developed complex problem-solving techniques. So when the methods designed to solve simpler problem issues began to fail, once again, beliefs rushed in to take over knowledge. Now, the leaders in this room know very well that the two issues that pose major threats to the progress on clean water are, in fact, this issue of gridlock and substituting beliefs for knowledge and facts. And how have you begun to break through that? And the way, and Jim mentioned this earlier, and I know you all are going to, and so did Tana Marie, you're going to focus on this today, is through innovating your problem-solving techniques using creativity, collaboration, and engagement. Now, the Cape Cod Commission's implementation of the 208 planning process is an outstanding example of this. The leadership of Paul Niedzwiecki, Christy Sanatory, and their team has been admirable, using everything from public meetings to gamification to separate beliefs from facts and draw engagement in the process. Collaboration is key, and the Commission has worked hard to draw in a full spectrum of stakeholders. Through this collaboration and creativity, the cost estimates for addressing wastewater on Cape Cod have been reduced by billions. Now, what exactly that number is still going to be determined by the process, but the original estimates were 5 to 8 billion over 50 years. The current estimates are somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 billion. However, I understand that with further watershed planning, that number could actually be reduced even further. And a key part of the 208 plan envisions information sharing, which will enable this innovative problem-solving methodology to continue. Now, I personally have been incredibly inspired by the leadership of Paul Niedzwiecki and the courage that he has exhibited in our community, and his wonderful team, Christy and the rest of the team, by Wendy Northcross, by Andy Gottlieb, by Rich Delaney and Rob O'Leary, and so many others, including yourselves, who have labored in this area. So much so that our bank was one of the first major funders of an education program about wastewater that was launched by a task force, because it's through education, a commitment to scientific inquiry, and new problem-solving approaches that we will get to clean water. Our bank is committed to the stewardship of this fragile coastal zone in which we live. We're having our buildings green certified, we're reducing energy consumption, and as you may know, when we were searching for additional offices, we had as a criteria that we would only look at previously developed space. But you need to reach our business and ones like it to let us know what we can do to help support our mutual goal of clean water. For example, tomorrow you're going to be focused on resiliency. Now, I don't know if I like this idea or not, but somebody made a suggestion that in a similar manner to the way that Title V was a methodology of enforcing more responsible septic management, that illustratively the banks and financing could be involved in the issue of moving toward resiliency. and the adaptation to climate change in new developments and renovation. So I use that as an illustration only to say, what is it that we can do in clean water that will draw in the banks and that will draw in the businesses, and how can you reach us to let us know what it is that we can do? We talked about inspiration earlier, and both Tana Marie and Jim focused on that. And I began with Henry Beston. And in the same way that he was an inspiration for the National Seashore, which was a massive undertaking, you can be the inspiration and provide the leadership to enable us to tackle the solutions of getting to clean water. You may know that when they were dedicating the Outermost House National Literary Landmark in 1964, Governor Peabody said to Henry Beston, "You've described our great beach here and the ocean that comes in upon it as no one else ever could or ever will. The Outermost House, as a testament, has had immeasurable influence. Your book is one of the reasons that the National Seashore exists today, to protect the beach and the many acres around it for future generations." President Kennedy, Senator Saltonstall, and Congressman Keith in political circles collaborated to create the Cape Cod National Seashore in 1961, and now 4 million visitors a year enjoy its natural beauty. The goal of getting to clean waters offers as much challenge and as much reward as this historic project. So innovate, collaborate, engage, and lead. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you do. And have a good conference. Thank you.